The nest arc is an extremely complex arc to deal with, whether it is by the way it was brought, its construction, its multiple plots overlapping each other while being part of a much larger whole that is quietly preparing, or by the development of the different characters and what SIU wants to tell us through all this. And we could even talk about aspects more external to the work, like SIU's health and his 2 big breaks, the very negative feedback he had throughout his arc, etc. So I might as well tell you from the start that this video won't be exhaustive, first because it's not necessarily what I find the most interesting, but also because it would be too much work. Moreover, it will actually be divided into 2 videos. The first one will be in fact a long explanation on how this arc was brought by elements present since the beginning of the story, how it took place and what will be the consequences on the continuation of the story. Then we will have in a second video a real narrative analysis of the Nest arc. Oh, and by the way, both videos will be spoilerish, just like the lore video on the Nest, until chapter 550, the last chapter of the Nest arc. Anyway, it's going to be long and complex, so hang on because we're going to see here what the real goal of the Nest arc was. To trace the origin of the Nest arc, we have to go back to the beginning of the story. Balm himself opens the doors of the tower and thus becomes an irregular. The only ones who know about his nature are the Fug, probably through Hedon, who will be the first to receive him, and we don't really know why. Yuri Jahad, who was told that an irregular had just entered the tower and who was strangely close to the first floor. However, Balm's existence as an irregular is bound to come to light when he decides to take the administrator's test, which only an irregular can take. It is also possible that his identity was known before that through the person who informed Yuri, or simply because the administration of the second floor would have informed the Empire of Jahad as it should be, but still, some heads of the 10 great families will meet to discuss Balm's arrival in the tower. And even if we should not rule out the hypothesis that this meeting took place after Season 1, I suppose that this debate took place during the tests of the second floor, because Traumarai has well specified that they met after having heard about his entry in the tower. However, the Fug will succeed in simulating the death of Balm in order to hide this irregular from the eyes of the 10 heads of family and Jahad. But some people outside the Fug will know that Balm has actually survived. We could speculate on the knowledge of some characters, but we are sure that it is the case of Jaina Repalista Jahad, who will tell Yuri that she will tell him where Balm is in exchange for the baby Zijina. We can be pretty sure that it was also the case of Masheni, since it is quite obvious that she is in cahoots with Repalista, since she will see her just before Yuri in Chapter 0 of Season 2, that she will know that Yuri is in the Hell Express to find Balm, etc. Note that Repalista mentions the return of the Prince of Jahad in Chapter 0 of Season 2, and that the other character who knows about Balm's survival, Gustang, will also mention it at the end of the workshop battle arc. Note that Gustang not only knows that Balm was still alive, but also knows that he is Arlen's son, or at least we can be pretty sure of it, since he was behind the whole arc of the Floor of Death, and that Garam Jahad must have been more or less under his wing, knowing that she is the person who revealed to Balm his identity. And by the way, Han Sung-yu is also aware of Balm's origin more or less, and even while he was still regular since his version given in the Hidden Floor knew that one day, the son of V would make his appearance. But this is not the only important thing about Han Sung-yu that we will see in this video. In summary, apart from Gustang, it seems that the heads of the family and Jahad don't know that Balm is Arlen's son, that he's just a random irregular and will probably believe him dead, even though it's possible that some of them are still skeptical about the idea of an irregular dying in a banal test, or maybe they suspect something when a certain Fug Slayer candidate, Juviola Grace, will appear in Season 2, bearing Arlen's name, even if it is very likely that they took it as a simple provocation from Luslek, but in any case the affair will die down a bit, and anyway, since the heads of the families did not agree on Balm's existence, and Jahad wanted to avoid a split between the great families, he did not intervene. During this time, Gustang will plot the whole arc of the workshop battle, as well as the one of the Floor of Death, so that Balm recovers 2 fragments of the thorn, to then reach his objective on the Hidden Floor by stealing Jahad's bracelet at the end of the arc, with the help of the treasure-eating ray that he had given to Rachel, declaring war against the Empire since Jahad will understand instantly who it comes from. This will break the fragile stability that Jahad was trying to maintain between the 10 great families. Yes, he had planned all this, and again I did not go into detail or speculation. But there is one more element of extreme importance that will push Jahad to use the 3 orders to eliminate Balm, and that Traumarai does not mention in his explanation, for the simple reason that he ignores it. It is the fact that Jahad will discover at the end of the arc of the Hidden Floor that Balm is the son of Arlen, the baby he had killed long ago, the child of the woman he once loved. He learns that Balm is not just an irregular potentially dangerous to the balance of the tower as Urek Mazino was, but that he is his sworn enemy. In short, Jahad will send the 3 orders, 2 aiming at eliminating Bam, since exterminating the Fug or killing all the passengers of the train comes back to the same point of view. And the last order saying to exterminate the Pobidao family, order which will be voluntarily hidden by the administration. The Empire will also send the army to execute Han Sung-yu for hiding the death of the irregular during the administrator's test in Season 1, but will be saved by Evankel, who had gone who knows where for a while, and they will both be fired from their posts and sent to the world of Karaka by the administrator of the 2nd floor. The fact that the order to execute Han Sung-yu comes only after the meeting between Jahad and Ba'am reinforces the idea that the survival of the irregular could have remained secret all this time. The Empire's plan is to kill Ba'am in order to prevent the Great Rift, as Calavan said, who was sent by Adori Jahad herself under Jahad's direct orders, because this would remove the tensions between the other great families and prevent Gustang from possessing the asset that is Ba'am, which would prevent him from doing anything against the Empire. Anyway, after that, Gustang will conclude Season 2 by addressing the Empire of Jahad, his former companions, telling them that this famous rift has begun to form. So we will arrive little by little to the preparation of the Nest arc. We will quickly understand that Mashani is going to warn Jinsung that the 4th Corps is going to attack Ba'am at the last station in order to make him face Calavan, and that she can then attack him from behind to be sure to capture him, in order to push Ba'am to come and save him later, at the Nest, in order to trap Ba'am and the Fug. At least that's what we understand at first, because the backstage behind it all is actually much more complex. First of all, you have to know that the Battle of the Nest had been planned a long time in advance by Jahad's empire, and that it was really only meant to prepare for the Great War that is coming, as a result of the split between the 10 great families. I warn you, you'll have to hang on because it's going to be a bit complex. To begin with, Jahad's army had to consolidate its links with the Kun family and the Lopo Bia family, while keeping the Pobidao under control. Most of its members not knowing that one of the 3 orders of Jahad was to exterminate them, and knowing that many Pobidao are part of the army, and that they should not suddenly start to rebel for fear of being executed. And so, in order not to declare war officially to the Pobidao family, Jahad is going to ask that it is the Lopo Bia family alone that goes to war with the Pobidao family. And in exchange, the Lopo Bia family is going to put 2 conditions. The first one is to replace the former 4th Corps, led by Calavan, by members of the Lopo Bia family, probably in order to gain even more influence, knowing that the 5th Corps already seemed to be almost exclusively composed of Lopo Bia. 5th Corps which will be sent to the Nest by Adori, in order to consolidate this alliance between the army and the Lopo Bia, who will send additional troops as a token of good faith, notably with Tokoko. Adori, who, I remind you, is the commander-in-chief of the Jahad army, in addition to being the most powerful active princess of Jahad, will place Po Bidao Liborik Kun as commander of the 4th Corps in place of Calavan, who had failed to catch Ba'am and had therefore been demoted, in order to not only make this alliance between the Lopo Bia and Kun families and keep the Po Bidao under control, but also to sacrifice the current 4th Corps, composed of members loyal to Calavan, and to rebuild instead a corps composed only of people loyal to Jahad and member of the Lopo Bia family, in order to be sure to keep the full control of the army. To do this, Liborik will use Kun Hindluk, who will sacrifice himself to destroy the ship of the 4th Corps, in order to take the cage and the dogs with him, and sacrifice Calavan's men in the process, in order to reconstitute the 4th Corps later with the members he wants, and at the same time eliminating Kun Hindluk, who was not really loyal and was only there by constraint, and therefore would not be a reliable person in the coming war. In the end, it won't have any impact on the cage thanks to Bam, who will use the power of souls and the second thorn to teleport the needle and avoid losses on the dog's side, but it will at least allow us to understand how this battle against the Fug is only a tool for Jahad's army to advance its pawns for the war against the Pobidao, and more globally, for the split between the 10 great families that is coming, and that they don't care at all about the Fug. And it will also allow us to see the flashback where Jahad is going to smash Kel Helam, which we will talk about in the analysis video. The second condition of the Lopo Bia family, or rather of Tromerai, was that they let him handle Bam's case. But first of all, on the Kun side, there will be Masheni on top of all that, who will really be in charge of this Nest battle. And in order to create this battle from scratch, to do what has been explained before, she will capture Ha Jinsung. Maybe she let Jinsung fight Calavan in order to weaken him and make him fail to capture Bam. Maybe she even hoped that he would lose to Jinsung and that she would come in at the end to finish the job, so that Calavan would be demoted and Liborik could be put in his place. But anyway, the question now is why the Nest was chosen as the scene of all this contrived battle. Well, here we have to go back to the Lopo Bia family. First of all, it is obviously so that the location of this war is directly linked to the Lopo Bia mothership, and that they can therefore fully intervene by linking teleporters to it. But it will not be just for the war itself. The main objective of the Lopobia, the main objective of Tromerai in fact, was to test Baum, and if he deemed it worthy, to submit it to his control, notably through the taking of Hajinsong as a hostage. And there is an essential point to remember to really understand the reasons behind this. The balance of power between the 10 great families does not come from its members, otherwise the Ha, the Kun, and the Arie would be much more powerful than the others. No, this balance comes only from the heads of the families. In fact, I already told you, but the power gap between the irregulars and the others is such that any family head could exterminate the whole family of another without any problem, and even if some heads are stronger than others, the collateral damage of such a confrontation would be enormous. That's why Gustang didn't go to fight Tromerai at the end of the arc, because otherwise everyone around would have just died. Just look at Tromerai's Shin Wonryu, which is only one attack among others for him, but which almost killed all the people in the nest, including top 100 rankers. However, where this balance could be upset is through the appearance of a second force similar to the heads of families taking over from one of them. And this is exactly what Tromerai wants to do with Baum. He believes in his immense potential and therefore wants to bring him into his family to have an advantage over all the others. And that's why he chose to attract him to the nest. But that's not all, because Masheni also has her own agenda. In fact, she has brought Baum to the nest in order to help him retrieve what is inside the crystal in the center of the nest, in which Tromerai has locked something extremely important to him, the Leviathan. Masheni has no idea what it is, however. His only goal is to create more chaos, and she thinks that this secret thing must be interesting. Besides, we also know that according to her, it is not only the Po-Bido family that has been acting unusually lately, but also the Ha family, and it is very likely that it is also her doing. First of all, she captured Hajinsong not only because he is the master of Baum, but also because he is someone important to the Ha family, despite his crimes. Secondly, we know that she is related to Repelista, but it is Repelista who sent Yuri to join Baum in the train, which is forbidden for a ranker. Yuri, who will also end up going to the floor of death, which is forbidden for a princess of Jihad, and will defend Baum, a member of the Fug, at the Ark of the Last Station, which is forbidden at all. And so she will be arrested, which will create even more tension with the Ha family, knowing that Yuri was a little bit the protege of Ha Yurin, the head of the Ha family. And by the way, note also in a corner of your head that there is always this bet story between Masheni and Yuri about the Green April. In short, it is obvious that all this was more or less premeditated because it was easy, knowing Yuri's character, to foresee that she would do all this in spite of the rules and her position. And we can even go further into Masheni's and Repelista's plans when we know that Repelista recovered the baby Zijena that Yuri brought back to her, and that this baby Zijena produced a jewel that made the fortune of the Yon family, who controlled the birth of the Zijena in order to control its rarity. In short, here again, Repelista has surely created tensions with another of the 10 great families to prepare for the coming Great War. But there is still one person who, like Masheni, will want Baum to take the Leviathan, and that is the famous captain. This captain, or captains, it's a bit vague, who seems to have been planning everything in advance for a very long time, since he had foreseen Baum's arrival and had told Cha and Doan about it just before the age of coexistence, before they were locked in the walls. Interestingly, he told Doan about Baum as a monster who would start a war with many victims, while to Cha, he described him as someone who would fulfill his dream, be of noble blood and have a great destiny. Then at the beginning of Season 3, he sent Yul and Kel to take Yon Ehwa and Hong Danhua as hostages, in order to force Baum to more or less accept them on their side, and have some pressure on them, which will allow them to follow Baum during the Nest arc and help him retrieve the Leviathan. We can see all the influence the captain has by noticing that he has an object belonging to Tromerai, by the way. But once again, that's not all. You could say, but still, Tromerai is a bit of an idiot to do this battle with this irregular in the nest, where Leviathan is, knowing that irregulars can break any spell. And you would be right. You would be right if Tromerai had not prepared the whole arc of the nest itself in the sole hope that Baum could free Leviathan and take it, which is very strongly suggested. But why? Well, simply because he can't control Leviathan, but he could very well control Baum, who would control Leviathan on the side thanks to the hostage Hajinsong. A plan that will be partially foiled as Masheni will free Jinsong, removing one of their leverage. Add to this the memories that Tromerai got rid of by locking them in Leviathan, and that Leviathan told Baum about. In short, we feel that there is something behind the relationship between Leviathan and Tromerai, that there is something with these memories, and that Baum could be the mediator between all this. And so, it's this mixture of all that's going to lead to the Nest arc, and that's where we see the importance of stepping back and rereading. I hope I haven't lost you too much, and don't forget that I haven't made any theory yet. But anyway, in preparation of the Nest arc, Baum will train with Evankel, then we'll try to rally Yama, we'll have the Cage and the Wall of Coexistence arc, where we'll see a little bit of the plot around the Baylord and Yasracha, and with Kel Helm, who will try to kill Bam to avoid the Great War that is coming and wants to control the canine people of Yama to go and protect the wall of peace and coexistence, and finally to prepare to defend themselves, not to attack. Except that Jahad will turn his power of prediction against him and will take advantage of his plan to send Calavan to rally the wall heroes to his cause, or kill them, and send Yasracha to take care of the Yama clan. Yasracha will not kill Yama because he has always tried to convince the sons of Wang Wang to leave the Lopobia family, far from danger, which we will also talk about in the video analysis, and Librick will notice this. But anyway, after turning Kelhelem's plan against him, Jahad has put the final pieces in place for the Nest arc to really begin, with the actors we know. Bam is just gonna have to beat a Rao ranker to make a splash and bring in new troops, like Sophia Tan for example. Yama, his brothers and his clan will join him to take revenge on Yasracha and get back the dogs taken hostage. Huaryun, who had disappeared since the last station arc, came back to Bam just before the Nest arc. We don't know what was the purpose of his famous trip, but it seems to have something to do with the Fug Elders. In any case, what is sure is that she is in direct contact with Grace Mirkea Luslek, the leader of the Fug, that she acts according to his directives, and that the latter will not come to the Nest in order to avoid involving the presence of a family leader and compromising Bam. This will not change anything in the end since Tromerai will show up, but anyway, we finally arrive at the Nest. So to remind you, Bam goes to rescue his master Hajinsong, who is locked up in the heart of a place called the Nest, a base belonging to the Lopobia family, composed of 3 defense walls, and in the center of which is a giant suspendium crystal that makes everything float around, and in which Tromerai has locked up the Leviathan. I'm not going to detail the whole arc because it wouldn't be of much interest, you've already read it after all, but I'm going to focus on some important points to remember. The Nest arc is divided into 3 parts. The battles of the first and second wall, the game Every Man for Himself, God for All, with the Cat Tower, and finally the last part where everything goes to hell with the arrival of Tromerai. Bam and his allies will arrive at the Nest and will quickly break through the first wall of defense, thanks to the help of Kelhelem and Soho, who will send the cage to the other side, and then the battle to bring down the second wall will begin. What is important to note here is that Jahad's empire will knowingly send Small Fry to be slaughtered by the Fug high rankers in order to exhaust them, to make a war of attrition, and also to make their propaganda work. The Fug, by making many victims, will shock the population and pass for a real group of extremists who have no legitimate claims, whose only goal is chaos, which then allows to justify that the army of Jahad has full powers to be able to bring firm and effective answers to this danger. For a totalitarian power needs an enemy that frightens the population in order to keep itself in place, to justify its authority, and to discredit any opposition. Of course, this will also be the occasion for the army to get rid, in part, of Calavan's 4th Corps as planned. In short, after various events, they will succeed in crossing the second wall and will find themselves facing the 5th Corps, that of Yasracha. And we will be able to pass to the second part of this arc. We will have to pass the last wall, the game Every Man for Himself, God for All, which will be divided into 2 parts. On the one hand, we have those who will be on the maps and will have to advance to the end by facing enemies placed in cages from time to time in order to reach a teleporter allowing them to go where they want. Enemies that are people that Yasracha has captured, and to whom he promises freedom in case of success, by the way. We have Calavan on one side, who wants to go to Liborik. Evankel on the other, who has learned from Lefav that there is a teleporter leading to the Lopobia mothership and therefore wants to go and destroy it, to prevent the whole Lopobia family from landing in the Nest. Bam, who wants to go and rescue Jinsong, and Yama, who wants to smash Yasracha. And on the other side we have the Cat Tower, where allies or enemies will have to go and capture mice, allowing them to go on the ground of a participant, or to make a mini-game to buy things, allowing to facilitate the progress of people on the map. In short, a very complex game as SIU is used to. On the Evankel side, Lefav will join him as well as Hansung Yu after having beaten Haracha. They will go to the end of the map without too much problem, but will be teleported to 2 different places since there are actually 2 portals leading to the Lopobia mothership. On Calavan's side, he will be right in front of the teleporter, but will have to wait for someone from the Cat Tower to come on his map, which will be the case with Hachionhi after his non-fight against Hasacha and his vacation power. On the Yama side, we will have a map to do in a straight line with only cages with enemies to beat. But with a surprise in the middle, Yasracha will be in one of these cages, and after showing his animalization, he will completely defeat Yama before Doom comes to join him, and Yama will be saved by Kun's group, who will buy an item allowing to send an enemy back to his cage. Doom will then stick his father's fang into Yama's chest, and they will finish the map, then go back to face Yasracha. Finally, on the Bam side, if everything goes well at the beginning, it will quickly change with the arrival of White on the field. It's a big part of the arc that I'm going to talk about in the analysis video. but to summarize. Bam is going to run away at first, Arya is going to land on his field, fight against Bam at the beginning, and then help him against White when she understands that he can break his spell. We will have a fight in 3 phases. The first one where Bam and Arya will try to gain time to run away with the springboard, before White reveals to Bam that he ate a Kraptor and Prince in the train. A second phase where Bam will get smashed, and where White will decapitate Arya. And finally a third phase where Bam will explode all his power and beat White with the help of Khun and Rak, absorbing the souls that White has eaten since he got out of the train. White will then regress, and Vincent will take the place of his brother Joaquin as far as White's control is concerned. Finally, Bam will finish his card without having to beat the end boss, Highbreeder, since he will be freed by one of the 3 members of the Khun family sent by Masheni, and besides that, a lot of characters will still be present in the Cat Tower. And this is where it gets complicated, because we are going to enter the third part of the Nest arc. Mule Love and Evankel are going to arrive to one of the teleporters, the one present in the Cat Tower, from which White Garment Widow will come out. I'm not going to repeat all the members of the Lopobia family since I already talked about them in the lore video about the Nest. The other members of the Cat Tower will more or less find each other, some being chased by Highbreeder, the others chasing Lopobia Fusile, who is in fact a human bomb that will explode and take the whole Cat Tower with him. In the end, all the occupants of the Cat Tower will be teleported by Sophia Tan, showing that she is really an extremely powerful light bearer. Next, Hansung Yu and Leifav will arrive at the other teleporter, where Maya, Candide and Liberic will be. Calavan will show up and fight against Liberic, then will stop when Liberic will tell him the plan behind the Battle of the Nest, and turn against the others. And it is at this moment that Tromurai, accompanied by Perseus, Pudidi and Haaland, will appear. At the same time, Yama and Doom will go back to fight against Yasracha, thanks to whom we will have the incredible flashback with Wang Wang and Nen Nea, which we will come back to in the analysis video. And finally, on Bam's side, we have Masheni, who is going to ask Bam to go into the crystal to free what Tromurai has sealed in it and bring it back to him, as I said earlier, and in exchange will free Jinsung, to whom she will ask to guard the entrance of the crystal while waiting for Bam to return. The famous captain will kill Bam's pursuer to make sure that everything goes well on his side. Bam will free Leviathan, absorb him and destroy the crystal. In the meantime, it is important to note that Tromurai will spare Yu Hansung when he hears him talking about the fragment of the immortality contract, telling us that his friend is looking for him. I refer you to the lore video about the 10 great families and the top 100, but as a reminder, we know that according to the non-canon lore, Hendo Lok Bloodmatter is the only head of family who has not signed the same immortality contract with the administrator of the 100th floor as the other great warriors, and that he feeds on the lifespan of his own children to continue to live. We also know still from the non-canon lore that Yu Hansung is related to the Hendo Lok family, and finally we know that Yuhan means something limited, finite, and that Sung means which has the characteristic of. All this is to be put in parallel with what he will say to Haracha before killing him. The heads of the 10 great families have given up their humanity in exchange for immortality. I am only a limited fragment that wants to destroy them. And I'm not talking about the fact that he knew, while he was still regular since we're talking about his given version of the hidden floor, that Bam is V's son, while V's very existence is one of the tower's biggest secrets, and that his link to Bam seems to be unknown, even to the highest ranking members of the FUG. In short, we feel that he will be a very important character in the future, especially as far as the Hendo Lok family is concerned. And all this teaches us in passing that Tromurai seems to have a good relationship with Blood Matter, which allows us to better situate another of the 10 great families on the conflict that is being played out. Tromurai will then bring back to him Yasracha, Yama and Doom. They will try to fight a little bit, then Bam will show up, face Tromurai, and this last one will propose him a marriage for the reasons that I explained earlier. Bam will refuse, and Tromurai will do his Shinwonryu. But in the meantime, Gustang will show up alone in front of the Lopobia mothership, and will start destroying a lot of ships. Tromurai will be informed and will stop his attack. The others will take advantage of it to run away, and they will be scattered everywhere since Lefav will break the teleportation portal while they will cross it. Besides, Masheni will modify the teleportation address of Kun and Hua Ryun's group to separate them from Bam. So, to summarize, on one side, we have the group that will flee in the Needle thanks to Sophia Tan and land in the Scented Snow Garden, with Evankel, Sora, Mule Love and some dogs from Yama's clan. On the other hand, Yama, Doom, Karaka, Doan and Yasracha, who will face an army of beastmen controlled by a random ranker named Fates. We will have Candide, Maya, Highland, Pudidi and Perseus, who will be teleported in the middle of the mothership of the Pobidao family, and who will have to infiltrate it, and the ship of Kun, Hua Ryun, Rak, Arya, Vincent, Yul and Kel, who will find themselves in front of Gustang, and that he will also bring back to his mothership, the Ark of the Knowledge. Mothership, where we will find Rachel and her companions, Akryong, Hayura, Michael, and the girl who is very probably the daughter of Akrapta. And finally, we will have Bam, Jinsung and Cha, as well as Tromarai who will come along. It is there that Jinsung will manage to propose a tournament to Tromarai by putting the hand of Bam in first prize. A tournament in which other families will be able to take part, which is convenient for him because that makes it possible to really legitimize the arrival of Bam in his family in the event of victory of which he seems to be rather certain. They will then cross the path of Lilian's ship, a princess of Jahad that we had already seen on floor 39 in the Name Hunt Station arc, and that had teased us a little about the confrontation between some princesses of Jahad. Finally, we know that Bam will ask Tromarai the permission to participate himself in the tournament and to cancel the wedding in case of victory, something that Tromarai will strangely accept, putting in exchange a condition to Bam, condition that is still unknown to us. The news of the organization of this tournament will spread and reach the ears of Endorsi, who is accompanied by Anak and who will naturally want to go to the tournament. Note by the way that Anak mentions the place indicated by the Traveler, a character who was introduced in the workshop battle arc and who is centered on the plot of Emily, herself very much linked to Rachel. I'll refer you to the video on all the plots if you want more details. And speaking of Anak, the arc will conclude with the return of his sworn enemy, one of those who killed his parents, a member of the Red and now a member of the Royal Guard, Lopo Biaren, who will aim to kill Bam. And so, where does all this lead us? Already what is sure is that we are heading for a war between two great powers, the Lopobia and the Pobido. So it's going to be a war of a very large scale, of which the nest was really only the premise. But in reality, what is going on behind it is the beginning of an even bigger conflict between the 10 great families. The Pobidao are clearly the enemies of Jahad's empire unofficially, but officially they are just going to come into conflict with the Lopobia, as if it were just a feud between two families, which is what Jahad has planned in order to avoid too much chaos within his own army, in which there are Pobidao. But beside that, the Ha family also seems to create tensions, whether it is with Ha Jinsung a little, but also and especially with Yuri, who is going to be judged for her crimes by the Empire of Jahad, while she is adored by the head of the family, Ha Yurin. Ha Yurin will certainly try to protect her and will surely oppose Jahad, which will create tensions. On the side of the families who side with Jahad, we have the Lopobia, the Kun, and probably the Hendo Lok, since as we said earlier, the relationship between Traumarai and Bloodmother seems to be rather good. Then we know that there is all this intrigue around the baby Zijena which concerns the Yon family, even if we don't know exactly what Repelista is going to do with it. And then we are left with the Ari, Ariye, Eurasia and Tuperi families about whom we don't know much about this conflict. We know that the Ari family is rather pacifist, and therefore we can imagine that they will try to take a stand as little as possible. The Ariya family, on the other hand, is the most influential of the 10 great families, so they don't really have any interest in getting involved in the war because they don't have much to gain from it. And it's a family that plays it a bit noble. I can see them watching all this from afar without really getting involved. But then it all depends on the relationship that her head of the family, Ariye Hon, has with Jahad. It's kind of hard to get a sense of that kind of thing. The Eurasia family has a very tense relationship with the Po Bidao family, since the whole story between Blossom, Gustang and their daughter Ene Jahad, who went crazy when he learned the secrets about Arlen Grace and has been locked up by Jahad's empire ever since. This led to the separation of Blossom and Gustang and the prohibition of the members of these two families from marrying each other. This is a rather complex case because we don't know if this grudge will push them to oppose the Pobidao family, or if, on the contrary, it will push them to oppose Jahad, who is the real responsible of all this. I refer you to the video on Jahad's princesses concerning the whole story with Enna, the creation of the princesses by Gustang, and how Jahad cruelly twisted it all to his advantage, because it's a rather complex point. And finally we have the Tuperi, of which we still know absolutely nothing. Seriously, it's been 550 chapters and their name hasn't been mentioned once. I wonder what SIU is preparing with them. In short, we are in a complex situation with a lot of unknowns, and it is quite difficult to imagine what will happen around this rift between the 10 great families. And around this major plot concerning this internal conflict of the Empire of Jahad, several secondary plots gravitate. We can already see that the plot is divided into two parts. On one side we have Bam and this tournament story, on the other Kun and Rachel among the Pobido. On the Bayam side we don't know yet what form this tournament will take, so it's quite difficult to know how it will take place. But we know that the different great families will be invited to participate. Now all the great families have an interest in having Bam in their family. This tournament will literally be a war between great families with the appearance of a competition to obtain an important strategic weapon, an irregular. We also know that it will involve at least 2 princesses of Jahad, Lilian and Indorsi, so we can wonder if we are heading towards the famous Princesses of Jahad arc that SIU has been talking about for so long, and that it has teased many times. But I don't think so, because I imagine the Jahad Princesses arc as an arc with huge repercussions, involving almost all the important princesses, so with Adori, Ene, etc., and in which we'll have a lot of very important revelations concerning the whole plot with the 13 months Arlen, etc. So I think it's a bit too early for the moment, but you never know. Still on Bam's side there is Indorsi and therefore Anak who will join him. Anak who is most probably from the Lopobia family, by the way. In short, there could be a plot around her and Lopobia Ren. And finally we can also wonder if other princesses of Jahad still regular will take part in the tournament, knowing that there is a plot that has been teased to us about a conflict between Ariye Rose Jahad and Hendo Lok Gladmary Jahad, to whom are linked Lilial and Shilial, as well as Maria, the half-sister for whom Aguero has plotted to make her become a princess, and who is an extremely important person for him and his personal development. Knowing also that Masheni, yes, her again, collaborated with Shilial and Lilial at the name hunt station. In short, there are many possibilities, but I can't imagine this arc solving all that, especially the part about Maria, since it's more likely to be resolved with the Kun family arc or the princesses arc. But I think that SIU just left Aguero out of the plot of the tournament with Bam to bring Maria into the plot without having to talk about her relationship with him. But this arc could allow us to flesh out a little bit this conflict between the princesses regular and the great powers that support them in the background, in order to prepare the real arc of the princesses of Jahad, itself linked in any case to the conflict between the 10 great families. The other part of the plot is going to take place on the side of Rachel and Kun. We're going to follow them pulling at each other on the mothership of the Po Bidao, as the latter prepares for the war against the Lopobia, and it's quite difficult to predict what's going to happen next. Are we going to know what Rachel's 3 wishes are? Has Gustan granted her any of them yet? And also, will we know what she's up to with Emily's plot? Besides, Rachel's group is a bit of a walking subplot between Akryung, who is very mysterious, and Akrapta's daughter. In short, there are a lot of things that can potentially play out here, or at least move forward a little bit, and at the same time a lot of unknowns. And I wonder if the conflict between Aguero and Rachel will allow us to have again interesting dialogues between them about Bam, as it was the case during the Dala show. And of course, next to that we will have the plot with the group of Yama, who seems to follow a part of the Lopobia army in preparation of the war, and the group of the Scented Snow Garden, which we don't know what will be their goal, if they have one. And finally we can note that there is still the group of Wangnan, who are currently climbing the tower, and who have a small link with the plot of Emily through Horyang and Kasano, but I don't imagine them reappearing in the plot in this next arc. From a global point of view, we can see where the plot of Tower of God is heading little by little. A great war in the whole tower between the 10 great families, a rift which is teased since the end of Season 2 by Gustang, which has as a trigger the arrival of Bam in the tower, and as a real origin the old conflict which opposed V and Arlen to his companions. However, the paths that will lead to this war are still very unclear, as are all the subplots concerning the various characters. The short-term continuation in detail is therefore quite difficult to predict. As usual, in fact, SIU has shown us that with this Nest arc, which had nothing to do with what we expected at the beginning of the arc, which I'll be able to tell you about in the analysis video as well. That's it for this time. There was a lot of info, so I hope I was clear and I didn't lose you. You can subscribe, like, share, comment, etc. And I'll see you soon for the analysis video of the arc, which will be coming soon and in which we'll be able to talk about a lot of interesting subjects. Bye!